Hello and welcome to the Zach Ratliff Show. I'm Zach. Glad to be with you. Glad you are with me. You know what? Thank God for another day. Thank God for a beautiful day. Thank God for the greatest country He's ever put on the face of this earth. We've created more freedom and opportunity than ever before all around the world, based off a country that was founded with him. How many of the original um, how many of the original colonies, as they became states, had in their constitution that you even had to be Christian to serve? That's something that's never talked about. But before we get into that and more, let me thank my sponsors. I'd like to thank Mortgage Financial here in Texarkana. I'd like to thank Elmwood Custom Goods. And I'd like to thank Church on the Rock, Texarkana. That's churchontherock.org. All right. Well, first of all, let me say that over the weekend, and I know it's Tuesday, or I'm recording this on Tuesday. I don't know when you're listening to it. Um, over the weekend, it was awesome to see, and I put out a short on this, but it was awesome to see at my church. Um, our pastor took the time. We usually have a good bit of music and worship and all of that, and we still had some of that, but they cut that short so that when he had time to go into what happened last week and to talk about the evil that we face in this world, and then was able to continue on with the series, but he didn't overlook it. And it's nice to have a church that's in touch with reality. It's nice to be a part of a church where, hey, we're going to acknowledge what's going to happen. We're going to call it what it is, which is evil, and then we're going to talk about how we're expected to get through it. And so that I appreciated that. So there you go. All right, let's get into this article that came out this morning. Well, and it was said last night on Jesse Waters on Fox News, but I didn't see it till this morning on X.com. Jesse Waters. It says, Kid Rock says the mainstream media is public enemy number one. I think that's absolutely right. I mean, how many times can you call somebody Hitler? How many, even if it's Donald Trump, even, oh, it's Hitler. Anybody that supports him is a fascist. How, first of all, most of these lefties don't even know what a fascist is. Right, it's just some because racist has lost its sting so much because they overplayed that, they've had to move to calling everyone a fascist. It's just Chicken Little, right? The sky is falling, the sky is falling, the sky is falling, or whichever version of the story you want to go with. The boy who cried wolf. There's a wolf. There's a wolf. Right. At some point, it loses. So then you have to switch up your words. So it went from racist to fascist, and homophobe and Islamophobe and a transphobe. You're all of these things. However, we're none of those things, right? We just want to be left alone. We just want to be able to speak our piece. We're all, the left is all for free speech until it's not their thought, until it's not their speech, and the media perpetuates that every day. The mainstream media does. Look, and let's be honest. If it wasn't for Elon Musk buying X, buying Twitter, a lot of this stuff wouldn't be able to be said right now. You have to remember, and I had this conversation yesterday. You have to remember, and this was pointed out to me, that in 2020, the media shut down the president of the United States being able to communicate to us. He was blocked on Facebook. He was blocked on Twitter. Fox News gave him coverage that, but I mean, they're not, I think they're center left, if anything, on the best day. And then, of course, the other networks weren't going to give him any positive coverage. So the media shut out the sitting president of the United States. That's the power. So yeah, of course they're public enemy number one because they get on there and they talk about how evil these people are, and then they'll ask the question, well, if you could go back and kill Hitler as a baby, would you? No, I wouldn't, because I don't believe in killing babies. But when you put that in people's minds, and then you pair that with the absolute lack of morals that we have, look, not I do everything I can to follow Jesus, but I'm not a perfect person. I never want to present myself as I am. But when when everybody has their truth, my truth this, or I feel this, or da 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 da, all the things, right? You pair that with just hey, what would you do if you could stop evil? With- Well, we've seen that, right? I mean, they've tried to kill Trump twice that we know of. They took out Charlie Kirk, and then to throw all the examples I gave last week, you know, the insurance guy in New York, um, and just on and on down the list. My mind kind of escapes me now. Martin Luther King Jr., Kennedy. Everybody who said things that the establishment, that the inside, that the back room guys didn't like, they take them out. It's just that easy. So yes, Kid Rock is correct. Media, public enemy number one. And, and here's my problem. I just assume everyone knows that. Or even like Charlie Kirk. I assumed everybody understood what a big deal he already was for us. And then I talked to somebody yesterday and they're like, oh, I didn't even know who he was. Then they said, but I watched his videos and he was absolutely right. I said, yeah, he was. And he wasn't hateful like they're saying and all the things. And, not to just dig all that back up, but he just carried the truth. The truth isn't always going to pat you on the butt and call you a good little boy, but it will always be the truth. Anyway, so here's the question, and I received this message, and I think I said it once last week. Um, when will your city, my city, whatever city you're in, Texarkana for me, when will they create a Charlie Kirk Boulevard? He was a civil rights activist, going from college to college, espousing his views, looking for making sure that Christians and others were treated correctly. And he had a following so great that he's being celebrated around the world for the last 5 days, 6 days, 5 days. They're having memorials for him in Africa and London and just everywhere around the world. In Japan, was it Japan? No, it was Korea. When will we see the first Charlie Kirk Boulevard? I venture to say we won't, uh, because it doesn't fit the narrative. That's why they keep calling him an activist. He wasn't an activist. He was a civil rights leader trying to bring some balance back to our country, just as Martin Luther King Jr. did. Now, is Martin Luther King Jr. perfect? No. Even for that, just like Malcolm X did. Malcolm X said that the greatest threat to the black man was the white liberal, and that is still true to this day. Uh, go watch the clip. You have all the information in the world available at your fingertips, and instead of playing Block Breaker or looking at cat videos, you can go learn some things. And I know most of you listening do. And if you're new, thanks for being here. We're picking up new listeners every day, so thank you for that. Anyway, so that begs the question: is Charlie Kirk today's Martin Luther King Jr.? I think so, at least for half of us. But it's probably how they felt about Martin Luther King Jr. too, at least for half of the country. I think it parallels. And then it was said to me yesterday, that Charlie Kirk was a combination of Martin Luther King Jr. and Billy Graham. And I think that's right. Over the weekend, we saw people flock to churches, some for the first time. I'm okay with that. Now, for me, you know, research what church you're going to. Uh, but if you've never been to a church and you don't know what your beliefs are, just go in. Make sure they follow Jesus is the main thing, right? And don't go start a cult over this, but make sure they follow Jesus. And then from there you can get in. The main faith point, the one thing that can't be argued, is that Jesus was the Son of God who came here to for us, who was killed, put in the grave, and rose on the third day. If your church believes that, and that belief in him, you can have your sins forgiven. Belief in following him. If the church you're going to believes that, everything else can be debated. Not that it should be, but everything else can. As long that's the faith principle that connects us. Jesus died and rose and was the Son of God, and you can go to heaven through him. If you're in a church that doesn't believe that, you need to figure that out because that isn't right. But everything outside of that, creation, evolution, how long the world's been here, wherever you want to go, everything outside of that is a secondary issue to the faith principle. So if you were new to church or you're thinking about going back to church, that's how you base where you're going to go. They believe that Jesus was the Son of God and that he rose on the third day, and that through that we get to heaven. Simple yes or no. All right, let's go on. This is from Dr. Sheila Nazarian, Nazarian, on X.com. He says, just you guys, talking about the left, were just mad about jeans a week ago. Let's remember the Sydney Sweeney ad, right? They couldn't believe what an outrage to the American conscience that a beautiful woman would be held up and looked at as a beautiful woman. What kind of craziness was that? How dare they use sex to sell anything? As if it's never been done in the history of sales. And we all know that it has. Then she goes on to say, but now, and she doesn't say now, but you are perfectly consistent watching a man get assassinated? Oh, not consistent, content. You are perfectly content watching a man get assassinated? That's exactly right. You're going to show moral outrage over a good-looking girl in some jeans. How dare she do that? But you're going to celebrate. You're going to celebrate someone getting shot live on TV and on the internet around the world in front of 3,000 people, of which include his wife and children. That's okay, but you can't be with jeans. You can't have a jeans ad. Tell me which side is sick. Tell me which side has a mental problem. How can you celebrate a live execution or assassination? An execution could be warranted if, through court and all the other things. A live assassination. How is that okay and celebrated, but you're mad about someone wearing jeans in an ad because she's a good-looking white woman? This world is upside down. And if you don't think so, welcome to this channel. Most people listening do. But also, you need to reevaluate your circumstance, reevaluate your faith principles. There's a lot that needs to be looked at here, I think. Anyway, I just saw that and I'm like, that's absolutely right. Mike Lee put this out, Senator Mike Lee. It's on X. In the coming days, I'll be filing my previously drafted legislation to reform the Smith-Mundt Act and renaming it the Charlie Kirk Act. What this was, and this was done away with by the Obama administration, made it illegal for the media to propagandize us. Because remember, the media, as stated at the beginning of the show by Kid Rock, is public enemy number one. But now they're allowed to. They're allowed to propagandize us. And we have to pay for it for the money they steal from us from taxes. Do you all remember the infamous Baghdad Bob? Right? I don't know if you do. It was during the I don't know, early 2000s when the US went into Iraq. and we're just going ham on them as our boys do. And then they have this guy, their propaganda minister, their public relations announcer or whatever he is. He's in a bunker like Baghdad hasn't fallen. Baghdad hasn't fallen, and the room is shaking because we're just hammering. Baghdad still stands. Baghdad still stands. That is the equivalent of our current media. It's just a bunch of Baghdad Bobs telling, "Oh, this is what's happening." They're just propaganda arms of the Democrat Party. And then someone comes along and finds a way to sway the 18 to 30-year-old vote and is great at it and is a Christian and isn't afraid to speak his faith and speaks boldly as commanded through the Bible. He comes along and and they can't argue with him because he does treat them with kindness. Now look, and this is something that's often overlooked as well. Kindness is not niceness. He wasn't a pushover. He didn't allow people just to be rude to him. He would shout you down if you said something stupid, but he was kind about it. He wasn't hateful. Problem with all these feelings these days, everybody's got them all wrapped up. Everybody's worried about what everybody else said and what they think about them and all that. Oh, he doesn't acknowledge my cat really feels like it's a dog. Doesn't matter. Anyway, you treat him with kind of anyway. The one guy that came and did this, once they realized they couldn't defeat him, they kill him. And then back to this jeans statement, and then they celebrate it. But they're mad about you going to buy jeans because classic Americana comes back in the form of Sydney Sweeney in a jeans ad. Anyway, I hope Mike Lee gets a little more traction, and we're going to need the Republicans to have some balls and get behind this. I caught some static on YouTube for saying we had a bunch of gutless Republicans, and you know what? We do. We do have some gutless Republicans. We have some good ones, but they're losers. They're used to being losers. They like losing. They're comfortable in the second chair. You know what a lot of us are made of. We're winners. We want to be winners. And if you continue to be a loser, we should not elect you anymore. Anyway, we need this Charlie Kirk Act, which is the former Smith-Mundt Act, to go into place. Matt Walsh, I've been reading one of his books. Matt Walsh has this on X.com. BLM riots, Antifa, Kurt shootings, Trump assassination attempt, Charlie Kirk assassination, pro-life pregnancy center fires, Tesla vandalism, attacks against ICE agents, attacks against police, attacks against federal courthouses. He goes on to say this is merely a partial list. Nearly all of the politically motivated violence in America is committed by one side. This is not a both sides thing. This is a one side thing. And that is in response to, you'll go, well, both sides need to calm it down. No, we don't. We go to work. We go to church. We don't have time to burn down cities and riot in the streets. How many cities have you seen burn over Charlie Kirk? George Floyd died of a drug overdose. Also, if no, I don't know. In my mind, if you listen to the police and follow their commands, they won't have to put their knee on you, right? When they tell you what to do, just follow, even if you don't agree. That's what the court system is for. There are ways to do that. But how many cities have burned over Charlie Kirk being murdered in front of I don't know how many. And at this point, millions and millions and hundreds of millions of people have now seen it. There were 1 million people protesting in the streets of London over the weekend. Once again, media being uh, the number one enemy. They said it was a couple 100,000 in London. London has fallen, by the way, not just the movie. Let's get a little closer to home here. Eric Doherty on X.com. Now, did you all see at Texas Middle School in TISD that this teacher came out and said, "Hey, they like it when racists die," and celebrate the Charlie Kirk thing. As of last week, um, as of last week, the guy had been suspended. I don't know. I will reach out to the district today for a statement and see what we can get, and we'll go from there. But anyway, over 100 teachers in Texas, according to Eric Doherty, will now have their teacher certification suspended and become ineligible to teach in Texas public schools after they endorsed the assassination or incited violence due to Charlie Kirk. Good. We look. There are a lot of good teachers there, but there are some bad ones. It's the 80-20 rule. No matter what you do, there are a lot of good cops, but there are a couple of bad ones. There are a lot of good podcast hosts, but there are a couple of bad ones. Right? No matter what you do, you're a hairstylist. There are a lot of good hairstylists. There are some bad ones. There are a lot of bad ones. All that said, we in teaching and influencing the mind of our kids, we have to take control. Good. Um, I think there's a website now, Murderers of Charlie Kirk or something like that. If someone said, and you can find it, if someone has that's a teacher or in whatever organization has published something like that, you can go there. Murderers of Charlie Kirk. That's what I think it is, and you can go there and you can you can screenshot the article, submit the name, and then let the internet do what it does. Now, here's the most true statement, or that I think I've seen. This is from the Blaze.com, Blaze Media. The headline of the article is, "It's time to call Charlie's and Irana's," I think that's how you say her name, the Ukrainian girl who was stabbed to death, what they are, demonic. That's absolutely right. It's evil, and it's evil to anybody. It's evil to celebrate. Now, look, I understand some easily swayed kids that are just finding their way. Once again, a lot of these things, that's who commits these atrocities. Oh, they were just a loner. Oh, they didn't have many friends. Oh, they were real quiet. Yeah, they're manipulated and brainwashed into doing this by over and over and over by our media. And then evil is real in this world. We have seen it with our own eyes. And it doesn't have to be recent history. I mean, go back to the massacre of people that we've seen, and not just by the Germans. Look at what Mao did. Look at look at what the Vietnamese did. Look, I mean, go through every culture except one so far, and and see what they've done. There's evil in this world. It's always been present in this world. We have to know this is a battle of good and evil. It's as if only. How about this? Let's play a game. What if there had been one creator of this whole thing we call a universe? And then when we messed up the first time and didn't follow that creator's rules, like, man, I got to give them a playbook on how to get back to me. And then he would have taken over, let's say he would have taken about 40 people over some 1,500 years and put the story into, well, you could call them 66 books inside of one novel. And it's like a playbook on life. What an idea that would be. And then if you got there and you got to the book called Ephesians, I mean, hypothetical, right? And then you got to the 6th chapter, it will say that we don't fight against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities in the spiritual realm. That's where we are. Golly. Did you see this chick at Texas Tech that was freshman celebrating Charlie Kirk, talking about some y'all's guy died and she's celebrating anyway? She's been expelled from Texas Tech. You are free to say what you want to say. I'm free to say what I want to say on here. However, you all don't have to listen. You all can find me in the street and tell me you don't like it. But you have to know there are consequences for saying what you want to say. If you're at work and you don't like it, or you want to go office space on your work printer, you're allowed to do that. Now, you're allowed to say that. But if you actually take the printer out and you beat it with the bat and to uh to the song in the movie, you're probably going to be fired, and then you'll probably get some charges put against you, and you'll have to replace that thing. You can say what you want to say. It's just there are consequences that come with that. And did you see that Trump's moving the National Guard into Memphis? This is from Todd Starnes on X.com. And then as they start talking about doing this, then the whole, I don't know if it was the whole Memphis City Council, but a bunch of guys from Memphis get up and give a press conference, talk about it's not needed. On traffic cameras, a shootout in broad daylight is picked up. No, no, don't come here to this Democrat run city. We like it dangerous. I've been on Bill Street many times. And this was, 10 years ago or more. More. And had a good time. I one time saw the sun set and rise on Bill Street. That being said, it's a little dangerous. It's a little sketchy. But there weren't open shootouts. It wasn't what it is now. A city is dying because of the refusal to enforce laws. And so is a nation. So is a way of life. The America you and I grew up in is dying because we have cowardly politicians or evil politicians, wherever you want to go, that will not enforce our laws. It's just wild. It's a wild thought. Rhino alert from Publius on X.com. Utah Governor Spencer Cox says Charlie Kirk said some very inflammatory things and implies he was a conflict entrepreneur. What a coward. What a coward. He doesn't want to be shamed in the media, so he's going to make sure to walk a line to where, well, the media can accept what I have to say, but I won't necessarily say anything bad about. No. This is the cowardly, weak-kneed Republicans I talk about. And we should expect this from Utah, home of, Mitt Romney and others. But not all. And also Mike Lee, I think. And Mike Lee from there. Hold on. I'm going to look that up. This is me looking it up. If you're driving down the car, driving down the car, it's a problem. Da, 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 da. Well, it gave me like a list of every senator that's ever been from Utah. Yeah, Mike Lee. Okay. Mike Lee and John Curtis. And Mike Lee's strong. Some people out there are. Anyway, all right, everybody, I'm going to get out of here. I've got work to do, and I'm sure you do as well. I hope God blesses each and every one of you. And we'll be back. We'll do it all again tomorrow. Have a great day.